mystery that's been sweeping the cities lately, but a mystery that's just as old as time. Aside from all these drones and weird drones that have been showing up everywhere, there's other weird lights, and they're not drones. And I'm not talking about just any UAP, I'm talking about a very specific orb. Even in a recent interview, Trump mentioned these specific orange orbs that pilots were seeing that he had talked to. Round orange orbs that were intelligent and made impossible maneuvers. From the past several decades of these increasing, especially in the past year, we're going to be connecting ancient cultures across antiquity who have also seen this thing, and I believe described it in the wing sun disk symbol, which connects to a specific type of orange orb UAP that I've discussed, and even to the cherubim in a very fascinating mystery. And even, believe it or not, biblical technological angels. If you're thinking Transformers, it's not far off for a certain type that we're going to get into. It has to do with the thrones and synced spiritual technology. So we're going to be jumping right into it, starting with my own footage and sighting from a year ago on these, right above my house. Has anyone else seen these strange orange fireball looking orbs in the sky lately? I usually skip past any footage videos on TikTok because either the poor quality or people make stuff up for some reason. But either way, I saw these last night over my house. It was flying low, it was intelligently operated, it was a silent, glowing orange fireball orb. And there was 2 or 3 of them, similar to the footage here. I'm actually going to show you my footage here in just a second. Apparently, these things have been seen all over the United States and some places in the world for the past 6 years. It's when the sightings really seem to pick up. Now, when you zoom in on this in my footage, you see it looks like a star close up. This looks like the wheel within a wheel that Ezekiel saw. This is the throne class of angel. What I saw was flying in formation of 2 and then a 3rd one. And then it just disappeared, just like all the sightings I read about when I started researching. Phased right out of reality. You can look up this video on TikTok that I'm showing you here about the war that's going on right now in the Middle East, about one of these things deflecting missiles. My initial thought was that it was either man-made technology that we don't know about, or some sort of spiritual phenomena or occurrence. What convinced me it was an angel was the close-up. We're going to be getting more into angel classes coming up, as well as angels as stars, which I've alluded to, the waters above, and the Mazzaroth. See you next time. Stay looking at those skies. They're here.
Disappeared.
Invasion of the winged sun disk gods. Mysterious orange orbs being seen everywhere. Throne class angels, my own footage, an update, and more. So I guess we're looking at the color white, or, well, this is a real pic of the sun, but clearly Google says it's white now, so yeah. Is this a Mandela effect, or has it always been this way? Quick add-on with this point, then into the mystery. We all understand the atmospheric effect explanation, time of day, position in the sky, etc. But pictures like this seems pretty high in the sky. Or why is it always depicted like this? Orange on this chart, or in scientific pictures like this. Or when kids color and grab a crayon, they never grab white for the sun, they always grab yellow, maybe orange. But I do remember as a kid grabbing white to color the moon. Probably would have remembered. Either way, none of that's important. One thing that's definitely not white is this tiny flying sun I've captured. This is my own footage as it flew above my house. Aside from doing research and seeing it everywhere, and having tons of comments since then, I'm going to give you a quick update on some research I found. And are these things throne class angels, a faux man-made version, or the winged sun disk gods that ancient history depicts, that you see a pattern of everywhere? If you study scripture, there's the idea of the Merkaba. It's a throne that God rides on, surrounded by the tetramorph, the 4 living creatures, lion, eagle, ox, and man. Ezekiel also saw these, wheels within wheels, throne class angels. I believe it's referring to the same type of thing. God obviously having the most dominant boss hog Merkaba. But they move at the speed of thought. Also, this whole chapter is fascinating, future deep dive coming on it. Also see that first word, beryl. This is orange beryl, which looks exactly like what I saw, although it does come in many colors. And this idea of the Merkaba is kind of like an entity slash co-entity all in one. A living, technological, moving throne piece of craft kind of. We're going to dive into this winged sun disk symbol that's seen all over antiquity in many cultures. Another worldwide pattern. Theory of everything playlist plug. You see this all over the world, in all of these places. You see it in Sumer, the Persian god Ahura Mazda. You see it in Egypt. What they're all basically depicting is this orange orb. It's basically a little sun that they're showing you is flying, and they're even showing you gods inside of it, basically. It's shown all over antiquity. And it even shows them being worshipped. Aside from the throne speculation, upon doing research, you'll see in World War II there was a really interesting UFO/now UAP phenomena mystery.
Unheard of accounts across the board and over time, these specific orange orbs who interfere in warfare sometimes. A lot of study has gone into figuring out what these things are. Here's Project Blue Book.
They were called Foo Fighters, or balls of fire. Hence the origin of the term Great Balls of Fire that they had a song and a movie about. Elvis made the song popular, and Elvis was totally into UFOs. But that's just a fun coincidence, maybe. These great balls of fire, Foo Fighters, Foo being based off the word fire, because they're little tiny sun, little orange orbs, which is exactly what the research says. They're not just random UFO sightings, they're very specific orange orbs. Not even any orbs, but orange orbs. They studied and declassified this called Project Blue Book, and even made a TV show about it as well, where in that time period at first you'll see the good old atmospheric phenomena excuse. Yeah. Nowadays, it seems like more and more they're wanting it to come out. Probably for a reason that we'll come back to in just a minute. Interesting also, these things seem to show up during times of war. Nuremberg in the 1500s, there was a great aerial battle where you see the orange orbs depicted. I'm believing all these things are the same thing. Also some Nuremberg anomalies involving a spear appearing in the sky, which if you study, you find in Aztec Mayan culture, this same spear has also appeared in the sky and landed on the ground. Many anomalies in the firmament sky region, such as Joshua stopping the sun, which if you think about certain models of paradigms, kind of would be almost impossible. Obviously the power of God though. Herodotus records that the Egyptian recorded 4 times where the sun deviated from its course and, quote, played false, indicating the sky having some sort of holography element to it, or a divine control, or sentient beings, which is what Enoch says. Enoch says that the sun is basically a divine being, or a chariot, like a Merkaba, this whole winged disc concept, and it's driven by the wind, this whole idea of spirits and divine beings who are in charge of things. The idea of these things being sentient is fascinating. And speaking of ancient Egypt a minute ago, we'll connect the winged sun disk mini Merkaba idea to people saying they're actually in contact with Hathor, an Egyptian goddess, and that they're actually back riding around in these winged sun disks, and that's who they say it is, and they're in contact with them. Speculation, obviously. But from then until now, you can see how it's clear that people think that these are literal gods flying around in these things. Also, many pilots and military men have noticed these things and have even done their own research. Somebody even dropped a book called Invasion of the Orange Orbs, where he's done tons of research about it.
UFO reports of orange balls of light are spiking all over the world.
Whoa, I'm getting a series of lights right there. It's moving.
20 years ago, there was only a couple. 10 years ago, there was close to 1,000, and then it's been on a super spike chart since then. Who knows what the numbers are up to now? Footage everywhere if you look it up, too. Not just any random UAPs, but this whole thread is about the specific orange orbs. Just one of the type of orbs. After observing these things myself and researching, it seems like there's some sort of photon shifting, frequency shifting element to the technology in it. Some sort of Coriolis effect like centrifugal force, a control where the inside environment is not really affected by the outside environment. Or some sort of quantum two states at once manipulation technology.
Or the manifestations of just pure energy.
The ones I've seen do not manifest any type of craft. You look at them and it's just like looking at an orange sphere that's glowing internally. It's not like something that has lights on it. You can see that the light is coming from inside the sphere.
All higher dimensional tech that we don't even really have the paradigm to understand. Or even understand what things are actually possible. Or that heaven is a total breakaway civilization society that's filled with technology. So the mystery of these orange orbs, whether they're throne-class angels, faux, man-made kind with reverse-engineered fallen angel technology, or ancient gods returning winged sun disk style, I guess we'll see. Interesting times. Peace out.
You're taking me up and away. You got me feeling so high.
In 1909, there was some mass PSYOP gauging with the War of the Worlds incident. to gauge public reaction against the constant cycle of information, misinformation, and disinformation, and seeing how people would react. And if you know anything about the story, you know how people reacted, or at least some of them did. This has been ongoing, and almost everything from the media is like this. They're prepping, predictive programming, training us how to think, creating mental paradigms and parameters, and then gauging all of these things. Monitoring pattern recognition and sociological evolution through cycles of conditioning and testing. And now, after all this time, finally declassifying it all to once again gauge and test the public perception on all this Edward Bernays PR style. All demon remarketing type stuff. One more final mystery. The wheels within wheels aren't angels. They're a living part of a craft that is a throne that have cherubim in it along with God. So the Lord is a fire from the waist down and a bright amber appearance from the waist up being. The wheels are next to the cherub. 4 wheel beings and 4 cherubim make up one throne. Thrones are alive and infused with the spirit of the cherubim like sync technology. Domes within domes, firmament above the head of the cherubim. A form of hands under their wings, so not a hand. Coals of fire within the wheels, fire from amongst the cherubs that they handle with their hands. Wings control the movement of this living craft that has thought-controlled movement. And there's eyes all over everything, wheels, rims, wings, and they can take the form of a man. That's just the intro. Ezekiel 10 is fire crazy. Learn a lot in a short time by paying attention to some key details that I'm going to show you from Ezekiel 10, a little before and after, which you always want to do to get the context, and a little bit from Ezekiel 1, then we're out. Could you phase an angel taking you by a lock of your hair and teleporting you somewhere between heaven and earth? Well, that's where we find Ezekiel. He's chilling in his house worshiping when this fire amber being, who's the Lord, takes him on this journey. Somewhere between heaven and earth, he talks about the firmament above the head of the cherubim. Repeatedly, we'll be coming back to that. He also mentions the throne of sapphire. Video plug on my page about God's throne. Let's jump right into the text with some key details I'm going to point out. In verse 5, you discover the cherubim's wings make noise. A lot of noise. The wings sound like many waters, like the tumultuous noise of an army, and like the voice of God Almighty. Cross-referencing this also with chapter 1. Verse 6, you see the mysterious coals of fire and fire from amongst the wheels and amongst the cherubim. Let's read verses 8 through 14. The cherubim appeared to have the form of a man's hand under their wings. Form of a man's hand? And when I looked, there were 4 wheels by the cherubim, 1 wheel by one cherub, and another wheel by each other cherub. The wheels appeared to have the color of beryl stone. As far as their appearance, they all looked alike, as if they were a wheel within a wheel. Some artist depictions of these wheels within wheels. Some will be more accurate than others. When they went in any direction, they did not turn aside when they went, but followed in the direction the head was facing. Verses 11 through 13 describe how they move and how it would be very unconventional for modern aircrafts, completely higher technology, and how they move at the speed of thought. Wherever they think they want to go, they go. As for the wheels, in my hearing, they were called wheel, which is the Hebrew word galal. Check it out. Galal means wheel, whirl, whirlwind, which is very interesting. We'll be coming back to that, and war chariot, God's Merkaba, which we've told you.
Even the prophet Daniel saw the same thing. Check out his usage of the terminology wheels, thrones, fiery flame.
It talks about the 4 faces, the lion, eagle, ox, and man, which each one have. And wherever it goes, you're seeing each of the 4 faces from whatever angle you're looking at. Also, from all of these descriptions, you can see how there's a wheel underneath each cherubim. 4 wheels and 4 cherubim comprise and make up a throne. Multiple times it says the spirit of the living creature was in the wheels. This is like synced up neuro-spiritual technology. Oh yeah, and the cherubim have hooved calf's feet, and they sparkle like furnished bronze. And this appearance of the form of the Lord, that's fire from the waist down and amber brightness from the waist up, is referenced as the glory of the Lord. Also, you see constant references to fire, amber, coals of fire, fire, bronze, and beryl. References in chapter 1, the living creatures, the appearance was like burning coals of fire, or the appearances of like torches going back and forth from amongst the living creatures. Bright fire and lightning flashes. Wherever the spirit wanted to go, it went, because the spirit of the living creature was in the wheels. Finally, at the end of chapter 1, there's a lot more references to the sapphire throne and lots of firmament weirdness, layers of firmaments, where it talks about firmament above the cherubim's heads. There's either layers of firmaments, domes within domes, or God's Merkaba has its own firmament. This special technological throne with 4 wheels and 4 cherubim that God rides on, with the appearance of fire from the waist down and bright amber from the waist up, where there's flashes of lightning going on, where it's a whirlwind appearance coming down that possibly has its own firmament. It's fascinating. Ezekiel's fire, lots of other fascinating rabbit holes and gems, like the mark of God, which is a seal that he put on people that served him, that he had an angel put on. You see the same mark of God replayed in Revelation, where the locust army from Revelation 9, the bottomless pit, only attacked the people that don't have the mark and the seal of God. In Ezekiel, God has an angel with an inkhorn put the mark on people, and angels with battle axes take care of those who don't, which is a frequent theme you'll see in the society of heaven. There's tasks, there's orders. They have to complete tasks, report back, and do things. It's a total society. Also, God's problem was that there was so much sin, and sin in secret, especially with Israel's leaders, and they were actually worshiping other gods and doing rituals and worshiping other gods in secret. Pretty sorry. Also, the common people were in a state where they thought God had just abandoned them and wasn't paying any attention to them and wasn't watching. So they would frequently say, God's abandoned us, who cares, let's just do whatever. While getting darker and darker on the inside in the spiritual climate. I think a lot of us can relate to that today. I get it. But hold on. Also, more gems coming in the future, like Ezekiel's mysterious soul eaters. Soul hunters with magical charms that apparently are real. Trapping souls Shang Tsung style. Enclosed, Ezekiel was taken to heaven in a chariot, a fiery chariot. Swing low, sweet chariot. Could it all be the same thing? The wheel, the whirl, the Exodus pillar of fire. Was it the same as the whirlwind in Job? Are all of these things the same thing? Check out one more really interesting verse at the beginning of Ezekiel 1. Then I looked, and behold, a whirlwind was coming out of the north, a great cloud with a raging fire engulfing itself, and brightness was all around it, and radiating out of its midst like the color of amber out of the midst of fire. Also from within came the likeness of the 4 living creatures. This whirlwind, God's Merkaba, this chariot, this wheel-whirl, combined throne creature, is the same thing. Pretty fascinating deep dive. Also, God answered Elijah with fire from heaven. God's got a lot of fire. Could all this be related to the mysterious orange orbs I captured in footage and did an episode about recently, the invasion of the orange orbs? Could be. Speaking of Job, he never really got an answer. He just needed God to show up. And as soon as God showed up, and he had that reminder of who God was, that was all he needed. Till that fiery chariot comes to get you, don't get Mandela affected or frequency warfared out of your faith. You never know who's watching, or who might show up one day to grab you by the lock of your hair.
Yeah. Don't get Mandela affected out of your faith. Yahweh in your DNA. 10-5-6-5. He's defined structure constant. You think the version of history you've been indoctrinated in is true? What? You think everyone you see that looks like a human is?
Are you an angel? It sounds crazy, but this is biblical, and there's at least 3 main ways this can happen. Number 1, the guardian angel / time traveler of Peter. When Peter was in jail, and he escaped because an angel helped him, he then went to somebody's house and was knocking on the door. When they said that they recognized his voice and thought they saw him, somebody said it must be his angel. If you look into this, there was a common belief that they thought it must be his angel because it looked like him, and that was why. A belief that angels looking like the person. Is this a future version of the person time traveling their spirit somehow back to them, to this realm, to this particular time point? More on that at the end. Number 2, in the book of Revelation, something really interesting about the angels that John tries to worship. Tries to worship angels multiple times, and they have to tell him not to. Look at what these angels say in regards to their identity. They say, I am of thy brethren, the prophets. I am of your brothers, the prophets. Pretty interesting. Also, there's a cool link there. If you study each time an angel blows a trumpet and the plague that's released is actually linked to an Old Testament prophecy. So the theory is that the Lord is actually allowing these Old Testament prophets to enact the judgment that they prophesied on earth. Interesting rabbit trail. Remember, heaven is outside of time. So if you make it to heaven, the future outside of time, you, who's going to be something like an angel in a glorified body, could probably come to this realm to visit. Kind of a sci-fi thought that's interesting. The third way is to be a starseed, and I don't mean the way the people on TikTok use it, I mean an actual starseed, like John the Baptist, where it was obvious that there was some sort of divine component to that birth. That was not a natural birth, that was a starseed. Even Jesus said John the Baptist is the greatest amongst men. Angel, Malachim, the messenger class. There are messengers here on earth in human bodies, like John the Baptist. Also the whole stereotypical thought about people becoming an angel, gaining wings, and then getting a harp. Although kind of a stereotype, it kind of closely ties into getting a glorified body, a new robe, new positions, even a new name, and a new stone. The Lord likes stones, by the way, if you haven't noticed. It's a major pattern. Angels ruling and reigning, and we'll have new positions, ruling and reigning. Paul said it's not yet known what we will be revealed to be, and it's like seeing through a glass dimly. And Peter said that the creation is waiting for the sons of God, angels, to be revealed. This transformation of who and what we will be is a mystery of sorts. But this metamorphosis or glorified body will be like the angels, and we will even judge and rule over angels, the word says, to an extent. Closing with the outside of time, time travel, angel from heaven mystery that I mentioned earlier. If your mind hasn't put it together yet, John sees himself in the future, in this outside of time realm. John sees the 24 elders that surround God's throne. 12 are the Old Testament tribes, and 12 are the disciples, which he is one of. He sees himself already there, outside of time in the future, around God's throne. Could you be one of the angels in the book of Revelation? Probably not, but there's a reason why this is a biblical thought and a possibility. Seeing yourself outside of time like John did, or maybe even your future angel being able to come back and help in some sort of way. Either way, we're going to be doing a future deep dive into angel classes. You thought my last Cherubim video was deep. Wait till you see this one. In the meantime, be an angel in this world. Earth angel. Think about that word evangelist. You see angel in there, messenger. Be an earth angel. See you next time on The Savage Truth.